Hello, Nujugo. How's it going? Good morning, Macmoose. How are you doing today? Just exercised and now we're very tired. Excellent. That's uh that's always fun. I don't really do that, but I'm proud of people who do. So I was trying to get this all set up and ready to go, and it seems I'm having some issues with my magic set editor because if I try to make a planeswalker, oops, it crashes. Just like that. So I think I need to uninstall and reinstall, but I didn't have time to do that before I got here. It's about being healthy, not about being swole. Yeah, I agree. I definitely need to exercise a bit more. I like biking. I do that sometimes, but it's hard for me to get out and do it. Make the time. Re-download the template. Yeah, that could work. I know that there was... It was more intricate than just reinstalling. Arceus had helped me out with it. Whatever I did. But that was a while ago. So I can just try reinstalling the file. Check which version of MSC you're running. Okay, let me... Would I go into Magic Set Editor for that? Yeah, about it. 2.1.0. And the one that I just downloaded is, I think, 2.1.2. That is correct. So, possibly just that it's old. So, I just extracted the full download. So maybe I'll just try and reinstall that. Hopefully that won't take too long. Let's see. Full match. There it is. Well, I'm still on 2.0.0 because I'm too lazy to update it. Yeah, it's not that I'm necessarily too lazy on my end. It's just that I feel like it's always constantly updating, and every time I update it, there's a problem. And so it's just frustrating. All right, let's see if that worked. Okay. So we have the correct version up. Here's hoping that I can make Planeswalkers. So back into style. All right, mainframe walkers. That's what I want. Okay, the problem always happens when I go to the type line and start trying to type. It let me this time, so I'd say that worked. I never update because I'm terrified I'll lose everything. Well, yeah. Well, Merge, you don't necessarily have to worry about that because your like new versions of the application should still be able to read the old files. So as long as you're not deleting your old like set files, you should be good to go. Or, you know, if you did make changes to the source files, that would be something you'd lose. Like, in the past, I've added my own mechanics to the keywords document so that it's just automatically in every new set that I open. You would lose that, but that's not a huge deal. All right, so we are back up and running, so I'm going to start the recording. There we go. All right, so I guess to start with, I made a list of things from the Discord. It wasn't super long, so shouldn't take us too long to get through. All right. We had... Hello, Tessa. How you doing? Shosher says, well, the FNM I was going to fully filled up in all events 45 minutes before it started, so I get to be here instead. Wow. That's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that, Sorcerers. That's not fun. I mean, we are happy to have you here, but... Aw, thanks, Tessa. I appreciate that. Who is your favorite person? Is it like some Valorant streamer or something? Okay, so we had a suggestion for a demon. New LGS does not give me the best impression of LGS. Yeah. I mean, most of the LGSs I go to, well, I guess it depends on what type of format you're doing, but they don't usually cap the events, you know? You just get as many. I guess, like, if you go above 16, you need, like, 5 rounds, and that's a lot, but still, that just feels bad. Oh, excellent. I'm glad. I came up with a couple interesting ideas for walkers. I'm not sure how confident I feel in them, but they're at least interesting. All right. Was there a name for this guy? Let's see. No, the name was insert name here. Right, and it's if a player would gain life, that player loses that much life instead. So I think this is a pretty cool design. This was Mech Moose. Yeah, so it's a 6/6 flying trample lifelink, which is amazing, since it's only 4 mana. But since it has lifelink, and it says if a player would gain life, that player loses that much life instead. It's actually, yes, it's a 6/6 flying trample for 4 mana, but it's actually the opposite of lifelink. You're losing that much life every time it deals damage. So you could kill the opponent with it, but you're killing yourself just as fast. But it also opens you up to be able to, like, target your opponent with life gain spells to make them lose life. So if this is a thing, we need to have, like, probably a common spell that says target player gains so much life. And then you can use it with this to make them actually lose that much life for real cheap. Tessa says make a White Walker. Well, actually, that is one of the more interesting ones that I've designed is my White Walker. Yeah, so I am completely on board with this design. This will be our rare demon, and it's kind of a build-around, which usually rare demons aren't build-arounds. They're just either pretty good or fine. I feel like most of the time they're pretty good, but I guess the AFR one was just kind of fine. Whatever. All right. We got Demon of Agonies. I don't know. Cool. So we got that. And then there was one other thing. Ah, yes. Sir Barrington. Which I did not know who Sir Barrington was, but I know who Chicken Boo is. And so basic idea is that it's basically an animal that is very not human, badly disguised as a human, and for some reason nobody can tell except for one person who's trying to convince everybody else, no, it's a bear or it's a chicken, and everybody else is like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's a human. So, Lifebane Demon. Sounds pretty metal. Oh, Nujugo says Flesh Twister Demon. What do we like, Flesh Twister or Lifebane? So, Sir Barrington would be like a bear, which is green. Let's just put it at uncommon since we've already filled in all of our common slots. I don't want to mess with them too much, at least not at the moment. So it has Undercover. It's a creature, it's a bear. And how do we convey that it's dressing as a human? Make it a bear, but give an ability that makes it a human in addition to its other types. That's cute. Yeah, I mean, the ability doesn't do much other than, like, puts the word human into the type line. So it's definitely a joke card. But, also, I feel like it dies into 2/1/1 humans. So it was 2 humans in a trench coat disguised as a bear. Who doesn't do that already, though? Die into 2/1/1 humans, you mean? Yeah, no, you're right, you're right. White human creature tokens. And then, of course, the cost would have to go up, because then this thing is way too good. This would be like a 4-drop, maybe? Oh my god, you could have a creature, and when it dies, it creates 2/1/1 humans, human after the 2 guys in a trench coat joke. Okay, so is that the same joke as the Sir Barrington one? We're just combining those into one? So we could do it like this, where if it's... This card currently trades with 3 2/2s, which is scary. Yes. Yes, it is. That's why I put it at 4 mana. So here, with this version, you have the option of either when it dies, you can put it into exile as you would with any undercover card, or you can instead put it into your graveyard to split it into 2/1/1s. I don't know if that's just like a weird, pointless design. Can we just outright reprint 5 Kids in a Trench Coat for the case files? Oh, that was one of the playtest cards? Trench Coat. Let me see. It's a 1/5 for 3, and 5 Kids in a Trench Coat counts as 5 creatures for spells and effects that count the number of creatures you control. Actually, that even goes well in the white-green theme, potentially. I'm not sure that we have anything that goes with it yet, but we certainly could. Ooh, Ortessa suggests trenchcoat should be an equipment. Equipped creature is tall enough for all rides. Okay, I don't know about that so much, but... Okay, so we have this... Alright, maybe we split up the Sir Barrington and the trenchcoat one into 2 designs. Obviously, it doesn't have to be the name, but... and then... Now, obviously, this is getting into the more like goofy side of urban fantasy. So we certainly don't have to stick with it if we feel it's a little off. But human citizen. Okay. Preprint? Equipped creature falls off of Steel Vengeance during the airtime hell. Is that a buff, though? Is that something you would want to equip to your own creature? These are the sorts of questions you got to think about. Next thing, we're going to make a vampire card, but its type line is just human because it's just some goth teen. Okay. I'm good with some humor in this set, but we do need to limit it to a reasonable amount. Okay. Do we seriously want to make trenchcoat an equipment? Because that sounds kind of awesome and we can do it. Actually, I've just convinced myself. So I feel like maybe it's sort of like Whisper Silk Cloak. Trenchcoat is very on theme. I think it would work well if we're serious. Yeah, just reprint Whisper Silk Cloak. Nujugo says, gives word and on hit investigate. Yeah, Trenchcoat Investigate does work well. I feel like we were trying to minimize Investigate and keep it more on... I mean, we have the 1 rare, Winks. But I think, in general, we're not as into that. The set just has Shroud now. Did that for in-game. Okay, we seem to all sort of not be on the same page about which protection mechanic our set has. So I don't think we're going back to Shroud Sorcerers. I know you keep suggesting that, and I know it plays better, but I don't think that that's what we want to do. Let me see. I know AFR used Ward. Let's see if... Okay. AFR used Ward. It does have 3 cards that say the word hexproof, but it has no creatures that themselves have hexproof. So I'm not sure if this is a trial run, if they're planning to stick with Ward on creatures and hexproof more as like a granting hexproof to target creature until end of turn sort of deal. Sorcerer is being a troll, but also it sounds like he may be serious because he has done it for a set and he has suggested it multiple times. So I just wanted to actually address it. think ward is fine. That seems like the standard going forward, and it's a lot easier to balance to any power level. True. So I honestly kind of want to do ward just because I feel like that's where the game is going, and I want to keep up to date. I will feel bad if this goes the way of prowess, where they bring it back for a couple sets and then realize it's not actually working, and then it goes away. And so then this will look kind of bad for being designed in the era when ward was a thing. Tarrasque has hexproof. Does it? I searched set AFR. Text contains the word hexproof, and I don't see the Tarrasque. Why did it not come up? Oh, it's a joke, because Ward 10 is effectively hexproof. Yes, that's reasonable. Well, and that's the thing. Ward functions as a more flexible hexproof, because if you really want something to be untargetable, you can give it a ridiculously high ward cost. Ward is Sorcerer's favorite of the protection trio. I think it's the most, although it is the most complicated, it is also the most flexible in that it doesn't have the confusion of Shroud, because players can still target their own stuff, but it's not as just unbeatably strong as hexproof. But it can be if you want it to be. All right. Merd says, ward with a positive effect seems like a weird twist on ward. That is a cool idea. That's a really cool idea. I'm just going to write that down here in my phone. Ward positive effect is just a downside, though. Yes, it is a downside for you, which means that the creature should compensate in some other way by probably being too cheap for its abilities. Penfex says, I hope I'm not going back too far, but if you want the bear that everyone except one guy thinks is a human concept as its own card, perhaps something like a bear creature that has, this is a non-bear human creature whenever targeted by a spell you don't control. Ooh. It's not going back too far. We definitely have not closed the case on Sir Barrington. So, like, counts as a human for purposes of spells you don't control. Sorcerer says, oh, no, wait, it has Ward 10. I was legitimately mistaken. Oh, okay. I thought that you were just making a joke that Ward 10 is effectively hexproof, which it is. But, okay. Let's see. Mekmu says, you can also make new effects with Ward, like the cards that make you discard to target, which I like. Yes. Yes, how almost every Ward card has a cost of 2, 3. But there was the one in Strixhaven that had the cost of discarding a card. Yeah, which is an interesting design. It's an alternative cost. Westgate Regent, the busted monster. Yeah, that card is almost unbeatable unlimited. I guess you can have a plummet, but as a non-bear human creature. That's a good point. Non-bear needs to be on there. So it's almost pointless. But we need something that is affected by this card specifically, so that it's not just pointless. I guess spells that target non-humans don't hit it. Yes. So we'll need something that targets not a human. Like I guess here's the thing, though. Why would you use your premium black removal spell on a 2/2? So it's actually, this wouldn't really come up. So we can make it bigger. It doesn't have to be a 2/2 for 2. I mean, making it a 2/2 for 2 does get the joke across more, but Mr. Kumo Barasis Esquire. Could put counters on itself. Okay, I think we need to lose Undercover if we're going to add more to it. Yeah, so +1/+1 counter. Then it could be an uncommon legend. Uncommon legends are cool. Okay, dope. I'm on board for that. Legendary creature, bear. I think his first name should be Barry. I do like the Esquire part on the end. Cole is uncommon. We could have a 5-color or a 5-card cycle. Where are you at, Cole? Baron Noble, he has to have a suit and top hat. Thank you. There. Cole should be a soldier. What is he now? I went too far again. Ah, good call. Don't need to put noble in the ability. Yeah, that's fair. I guess this is just replacing the word bear with human, so it's not affecting other creature types. Okay, so how does he get counters? He could be like eating dead humans. And that's how the one person who's following him around finds out that he's, you know, he's not a human, he's a bear. Sacrifice a honey token. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a counter on Mr. Berry. Whenever an opponent casts a spell. There's a card like that, right? It gets a +1 counter whenever an opponent casts a spell. I think I'm thinking of Sunscorch Regent and conflating it with Managorger Hydra. Oh, no, it is Managorger Hydra. Haha! I know what I'm talking about. So that is a 1/1 for 3 with trample, and whenever... Oh, that's whenever a player casts a spell, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So we can afford to make the stat line a bit more aggressive. Whenever you gain 3 or more life. Ooh. Sacrifice a picnic basket. Okay, okay. Gain. So then we need to make sure that we have food tokens. We don't have food tokens in this set, do we? I mean, we'll clearly have some. Oh, you're right. You're right. We have this bad boy. It's not a major theme, but it's we have a common that does it. Should it be whenever you gain 3 or more life? Is that how they word it? I feel like it's like at the beginning of your end step if you gain 3 or more life this turn. Let me see. That is how a lot of the recent cards seem to be worded. But you want it to trigger for each food eaten. Okay. So then you have to gain chunks of 3 life. It can't be like 1 life and then 2. Oh. So you know what? This also, just like our demon boy, it would also benefit from having a spell that gains a bunch of life flat out. So I know that that's usually a bad spell to include, a spell that just does life gain, but especially a common. But if it goes with 2 different like build arounds, that feels like a common, so we may have to like replace a white common or something. I could just make a note of it now. We don't have to do that right now. And specifically that spell that needs to say target player gains life. So that with the demon, you can hit your opponent with it. Do we have a drain spell in black? At common, I believe we had something. Here's our closest thing to a drain spell. I think when it exploits, you gain target player loses 2 life, but they lose 5 instead if you have 3 or more research counters. We have Life or Death, which gives lifelink, so that can trigger Sir Barrington. Sorry, Mr. Barry. That's about it. Life or Death is pretty good for that, because, yeah, he by himself with the spell, that's obviously 3 or more life. He's gaining you 4, and then being able to give it Death Touch and kill the blocker that is stopping you from hitting with him could also be pretty relevant since you're trying to build up one big creature. Sorcerer says revitalizing black sarcastically, and Cyber5 says, oh wait, no, he was responding to Murd. Isn't there a common white cantrip? Gain 3, draw a card. Is that target player? Gotcha. Yeah, Murd, it is you, but we can make one that is target player. It doesn't have to be a reprint. Yes, unless there's anything else that people wanted to talk about from the Discord, we can certainly move on to Planeswalkers. I think I got most of the stuff people were suggesting. Yes. Somebody mentioned that Face Taker has 2 reminder texts by accident. It sure does. There we go. Okay. There's a handful of Planeswalkers in the Discord too now. Excellent. So, in that case, I'll just go through them in order. Okay. Yep, I see him. Cool. Becomes... Alright, so... Let me see. What's the best way to do this? Because I don't want to type out everything, but it would be helpful if the stream could see it. So maybe I need to add another source on here so other people can see what's going on. me see. Oh no, that's not what I meant. Okay, any sensitive information on here? Looks like no. Good to go. And let's readjust it to be a reasonable size. Oh, can you guys see that? Can you just screen share the walkers? I know how to screen share in Discord, but then that wouldn't be showing it on Twitch. Can you guys see this? So sorry, I'm still relatively new to streaming, so I don't know how to do a lot of this stuff just instinctively. So I'm doing my best, but it's definitely a process. Okay, it looks like you can see this. So I guess until I get some better instructions for how I can do this better, we can just start going through it. So this is the first one that's up. This is one that Wind and Wave shared. We have a lot of people thinking a blue-black walker. I know Nujugo made one. I made one. You can see it, but it's a little small. Okay. Here, I can make it big and then just put it below everything else, except for that. There we go. That seems much more visible. Okay, so this is 2 blue, blue, black. It comes in with 5 loyalty. And it has +1. Card name becomes a copy of another target permanent until the end of your next turn. That's actually a really cool ability for a Planeswalker to get, is to be able to turn into something else. Effectively like playing as a clone temporarily. That's pretty interesting. It'll keep its loyalty counters when it changes. So if it becomes another Planeswalker, it will use its current loyalty to activate those abilities. That's a good idea. It also has +1, card name and target permanent phase out. Okay. +1 to phase out seems a little broken because you can just keep ticking it up, phase it out every single turn, and then it's not attackable. So assuming that it has any sort of relevant ultimate ability, you can get to that with no danger unless they have a spell that can target it while it is in play. And it looks like this does have an ultimate. It is small even for me too. So it has -3, target permanent loses all abilities and becomes a land with tap, add, colorless. So blue has done this ability once before, Imprisoned in the Moon. It's maybe a bend, maybe a break. I'm not sure where that landed. But black Planeswalkers usually get like a -3 to destroy a creature, so that's kind of relevant here. Or it's kind of like in color anyway. And then the -8 is you get an emblem with whenever a non-basic permanent enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, create a token that is a copy of it. Non-basic permanent, so anything but a basic land. That's a lot of copies. Sorcerer says, I had a walker with a +1 to phase out and scrap that effect because of how powerful it was. Yeah, I mean, it's very good. Maybe put it on a walker that costs like 8 mana or something. Something that's really hard to get to. But or just make sure that its like negative abilities are not too busted powerful. Okay, Cyber5 says, I could see the idea. By the way, hello, Cyber5. I didn't actually say hello when you walked in, but nice to see you here. How you doing tonight? And then you said, I could see the idea of a planeswalker that can specifically become a copy of only other planeswalkers. It could be interesting. Not sure fully how it would do it, though. Yeah, so we had something kind of similar in the Bolas from War of the Spark, who just has all loyalty abilities of other planeswalkers on the battlefield. But obviously that was, very hard to cast. You could probably do a more basic version of that effect in fewer colors to make it more accessible. I did have one draft where I was base green for fixing, and I was able to get my blue, black, 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 red Nicol Bolas out, and it was amazing. If this guy copied another walker, is it able to activate another ability? I don't think that the rules would allow that, because even though it's changing its like base stats, what the card is, you still keep loyalty. You would keep like +1/+1 counters if it had them. So like its status wouldn't change. Its status of having already activated an ability, I don't believe that would change. And since you can only activate one, that's that. But I could be wrong. That's just how I would guess the ruling works. Cyber5 says maybe it could have a static ETB where you have the option to make it a clone of another planeswalker. That is actually a really cool idea. So it's a normal planeswalker that does its own things, but also it's just like a normal clone. You may have this enter the battlefield as a copy of another target creature. Well, in this case, another planeswalker. Okay, so for this, I like the idea of becoming a copy of another walker. Let's go to our Mythics. This can just be our Planeswalker idea receptacle, and copy another Planeswalker. That's a sweet idea. That's the main idea from this card that I like. I think it, overall it's a bit messy and doesn't necessarily form a cohesive card, but I do really like the +1. Megnu says, so when you get to mine, the original idea was for a static effect that had it be a creature like Gideon, but fitting the mutant theme of turns. Decided against it because currently we have mutant abilities working on your opponent's turns, and then they can't attack it. But mine's probably the last one on the list. Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I will look forward to seeing that when we get there. Moving along. I'll try and keep it moving. So this is Nujugo's blue-black Planeswalker. It costs 2 blue-black for Delilah, Stonegaze Archivist. She comes in with 3 loyalty and has a +1 to look at the top 2 cards of your library, exile 1, and put the other into your hand. Okay? So +1 to card draw, card filter even. -2, create a token copy of Stored in the Archives attached to target creature. Okay. Garthing on a Planeswalker is kind of cool. I think Stored in the Archives is mono-white, though. Can blue-black do the same thing that Stored in the Archives does? Enchanted creature can't attack or block. So I don't think any color has the ability to pacify other than white. I mean, it is, but it's a research effect. I mean, it's a research effect. It gives you a research counter, which is blue-black, but pacifism is not blue-black, and I feel like that's the more important part of the card. Choose the name of another Planeswalker card. Blue can do can't attack, and blue can do can't. Black can do can't block, so. most of blue's can't attack are on its own creatures. There is an example that I can find, which is Ice Cage, which is actually just a mono blue pacifism, with the caveat it's actually a mono blue arrest for 1 and a blue, but it does get sacrificed whenever the creature becomes the target of a spell or ability. And of course, blue can like tap down creatures permanently, which means that they can't attack or block then. So this would probably be more of a bend than a break. Blue can tap down a creature perpetually, which is kind of like a pacify effect. Yep, Cyber, you were right about that. We're heading into white opt territory again. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like dismiss that out of hand, because there are, part of the interesting part of making gold cards is seeing how you can combine effects to do from different colors to do interesting things. So I'm not trying to dismiss it out of hand. I'm just saying it feels kind of weird at first blush, and then I want to investigate whether that feels okay later. Nujugo says she could be a blue-white planeswalker. Okay, and now let's get to the third ability, which is -6. Put a stone counter on each creature and each other planeswalker. Those permanents become artifacts and lose all other types. Interesting. So you just have a bunch of creatures and planeswalker like remnants on the battlefield that are still artifacts. So you could still, if you had things that cared about the artifacts, which we should, oh, but they don't lose their abilities. So also if they have just like passive abilities that are helpful, you just actually sort of protect those abilities because creatures are more vulnerable, and artifacts are less so. That's an interesting idea. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do this just to like memorialize your creatures, but you wouldn't necessarily feel bad about doing it. I think that ultimate is really the coolest part of this card. I believe green had a couple too, mainly Utopia Vow and Arachnus Web. Granted, those were before fight effects were given to green, so it's probably not valid. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. They did. Green had a couple different pacifism effects. Yeah, so then I guess they replaced him with fight, which is just kind of the opposite. Except it still accomplishes the same thing. It like removes a creature. But that's an interesting point. Can planeswalkers still activate if they're not a planeswalker? They have the abilities, but what's the role in activating them? Nujugo says yes, they can. Okay, I actually wouldn't have known for sure. But that's pretty interesting. Thinking about it too, what about a planeswalker that has the undercover mechanic? That is one of my suggestions. I don't know if anybody else has suggested it, but I was like, oh yeah, we gotta have that. So I was really excited to come up with that. Cool. So, back to our Mythics. I really like the memorializing, which is the slang I use for turning a creature into an artifact. All creatures and other planeswalkers as an ultimate. Cool. And then next up, Arceus suggested Bessie, Anomaly 246. Should have them lose colors too if you're making them artifacts. Yeah, I could take it or leave it. Yeah. Wizards might probably make them lose all colors. I don't know if it matters too much, but I can tack that on there. Let's see. Maybe a planeswalker with undercover and it has a 0 ability that you can activate in exile. That would be interesting. Of course, the problem is undercover puts your creature into exile face down, which is going to be like you can't have abilities relevant unless you somehow reveal the card. Those colors doesn't actually matter. You can have colored artifacts. Yeah, that's why, like, they could do it. We could do it. I don't think it matters. Unless we put stuff in the set that cares about colors. Actually, we do have stuff in the set that cares about colorless permanents. So it could matter. Okay, so anomaly 246. It costs 3 red-green for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. Bessie. +2. Up to one target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And Bessie deals 2 damage to up to one other target. Okay, so one thing's getting bigger, one thing's getting damaged. Oof. For 5 mana. Repeatable shock, and +2/+2. That seems good. -4, you may put a creature card you own with mana value 6 or less from outside the game onto the battlefield. Okay, and -6, create 6 3/3 green worm creature tokens. For each of those creatures, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. Okay, so the ultimate is kind of like Azuri's Predation, which is an amazing spell. The -4 is interesting, letting you play creatures from outside the game. Obviously, that's sort of what we're focusing on, is weird stuff. So I guess, what's the flavor of this? Is it like somebody's riding on this sandworm's back, like they do in Dune? Oh, you're good, Murd. It is definitely odd. Kind of odd how Undercover works. But the goal is to preserve, like, the surprise of what could that creature be. McMoo says, never been a huge fan of wish spells personally, but I can understand the appeal. Personally, I mostly just design for limited, because that's what I enjoy playing the most. And I don't necessarily see the point of wish spells in limited, because if the spell is good enough to want to pull it in from your sideboard, it's good enough to put it in your main deck instead. And you'd rather just be able to draw it. So I find that wish spells don't do that great in limited, except, of course, Strixhaven, which was designed beautifully with wish spells in mind. Big fan of how the learn mechanic worked, but I'm sort of with you on that point. But I like having the option to do some weird and interesting stuff. Cyber5 suggests a colorless planeswalker, something alien-like. Let me put that down. We have had that suggestion. So definitely something that would make some sense. The -4 was Bessie screwing stuff up from her captivity, sort of wreaking havoc on the inside. Okay. Gotcha. The other 2 abilities are ripped from / based on other Bessies. Makes sense. The Planeswalker's going to do what that character does. So, honestly, this is a fine design. We don't need to necessarily focus on the other 2 abilities as much. But if we were to choose Bessie as a Planeswalker, she could certainly have them, because that fits who she is. So, let's see. Murd says, I can't stay tonight. Can't wait to see what Planeswalkers you guys and gals decide on. Well, thank you, Murd. Appreciate you showing up and hanging out for as long as you could. Hopefully, we will have some excellent stuff. Oh, okay. Sorcerer's next suggestion is a colorless planeswalker. So this is Agent Codex. 4 mana, colorless. For a 4 loyalty planeswalker with +1, look at the top card of your library. If it's a colorless card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. Lands are colorless. Okay, that's pretty cool, actually. It does not, notably, it doesn't work with Undercover, which is one of our other, like, colorless sub-themes, but that's fine, it's just something to be aware of. -3, exile another target creature or planeswalker. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may cast it. So it's a removal spell, plus it's, like, actually stealing you that card. Okay. And -7, search your library for up to 5 cards that each have different names. Shuffle Then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on top of your library in any order. So ultimate, that's drawing you. Basically, this is drawing you a bunch of new cards to play. Interesting. I think the most... You know, Mirrodin is abbreviated Mirrodin, right? I did not know that. It's good to know. I was never quite sure what the username meant. I thought it had something to do with the Spanish swear mierda, but I'm just pronouncing it phonetically. It seemed like the most reasonable word to call them by. So I guess in the future I could start calling them Mirrodin. Megma says you do have to have the color to cast it. That's a good point. That makes this card more interesting. I wasn't designing Codex to work with Undercover, more just to get the secret agent researcher vibe. Yep, perfectly reasonable. I just wanted to point out that Undercover is one of our other, like, colorless sources in the set, and it doesn't work with this here. Just something to be aware of. But yeah, this is cool. I like this design. I'm not sure I can say one part of it that is the most interesting. I like that the +1 only draws you colorless cards. That seems like an interesting condition. But at the end of the day, it is still kind of just card draw. I like that the -3 exiles a thing and steals it for you, but you actually do have to have the colors to cast it. That makes some pretty sweet sense on a colorless Planeswalker. So I guess I'm going to say that's the most interesting part to me. Make Mirrodin pure again. It's a reference to the Phyrexian takeover. Yep, I get that now. That makes some sense. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I've just been calling him Merd this whole time. You know, sometimes it's hard with usernames. Good to know. Defiant Mars says, hello, how is everyone doing? Or whatever time of day you're in. I am doing well this fine evening. How are you, Defiant Mars? Mike Moose says, this is a 4-mana exile creature spell in colorless, which is extremely good, though. That is true. They gave us a 7-mana colorless exile creature spell in Zendikar. One of the Zendikar, Battle for Zendikar. And it was, well, I played in my colorless commander deck, if that's anything. So definitely 4 mana seems real good for that effect, especially because it's not just exiling something, it's stealing it. So I do agree this could maybe stand to go up. We could make it cost an actual colorless mana. I don't know if we want to do that. Cyber says, does Wizard still make cards where you need the colors of the opponent's cards to play them if you steal them? Sorcerer says not often, but that was an intentional design choice here. Yes. I think most of the time it makes sense, because most of the time these spells that steal stuff from the opponent are like blue and black, usually, which means you're already solidified in 2 colors, which is usually as much as you have in a limited format. So it's kind of unreasonable to request that they have extra colors there. But with this card, since it is already colorless, just sort of being prepared for anything, like for any color that you might have to play, that makes some more sense since you're not locked into playing any of your own. I mean, you still probably have a deck color, but you get my point. Duplicant is the other main colorless exile, and it's 6 that does give a body, though. Yes, Duplicant's quite good. I should probably run that in my colorless commander deck, but I don't have a copy. I'll have to get one. Grasp of Exile and All Is Dust have the same mana value. Ah, yes, those are the 7 mana. You're right. One is exile target creature. One is Each player sacrifices all colored permanents they control. So, Nujugo is maybe saying that there's some room for Grasp of Exile to decrease in mana value. Especially at higher rarities. Could make it cost 5 for what it's worth. I think I would want to. But definitely that's development stuff. We can talk about it later. For now, the idea is good. I'm a big fan of the second ability. I think that's my favorite part. Defiant Mars says, Universal Solvent is the example that always comes to my mind. Yeah, that's 1+7. And it's by no means like a great card, but it's playable, usually. Well, in the formats it's been in, it's playable. If it's a fast format, you're not going to be able to do much with that. What was that new lesson? Wasn't there one in Strix? Yes, Intro to Annihilation. 5 mana, all colorless, or all generic. Destroy target creature. Its controller draws a card. And if you designed that as a card, it would be bad. But since they designed it as a lesson, it was actually real good. I found myself reaching for it all the time. Just like being able to pull it in from your sideboard. Sure, giving them a card's not good, but a lot of times you just need to be able to deal with something right now. Solvent was also solid and limited because it helped with improvise and triggered revolt. That's a good point. I didn't actually play that much Aether Revolt. I played a ton of Kaladesh, but I feel like I never really did much with improvise. So I sort of forget about it. Okay, moving on. Amalgam title. This is Mekmoose's Mutant, I believe. 2 green-blue for a 3 loyalty planeswalker with +1. You may have Amalgam become a copy of a creature you control until end of turn. Okay, so we decided that our mutants have stats on your turn and abilities on the opponent's turn. Cool. So on your turn, this would turn into a creature with, if you're playing mutants, stats instead of, it wouldn't have flying or trample or whatever abilities your creatures have. Pronounce amalgam, lol. It's a play on words. Oh yeah, I got it. I just, sorry. Maybe I did not convey that properly. Sorcerer says, Kaladesh block might be my most played limited. Maybe me too? No, I guess that was before I started my draft group where we drafted every week. But I did play it a lot. No, it was after. I'm getting confused about timeline. Yeah, that was probably my most played as well. I loved the set. I know energy was pushed and broken and vehicles were pushed and broken, but I thought it was really, it brought a lot of fun new stuff to the table, and I enjoyed it. I don't know if we're going to use this, but at Mekmoose, amalgam, unintended result. Hey, Gunblade, how's it going? Welcome back. Congratulations for surviving another workday. All right. So 0, amalgam becomes a forest land until your next turn. So it could turn into a creature, could turn into a land. Okay, so you're pretty much never going to want to use the 0 on the turn it comes into play. Because... No. You could. I'm thinking for some reason that it's going to have summoning sickness and not work. No, it's just a forest land. It'll still tap. Granted, you've still just spent 4 mana, so getting 1 back is kind of minimally helpful. But it does work, so never mind. And -X, distribute X +1/+1 counters among creatures you control. Key point, the land is protection. Oh, you're right. It can't be attacked. But it's a 0, so it's not as powerful as +1 to phase it out. That's cool. Okay. I like that a lot. Laughs in red land destruction. Well, we do need to have some land destruction, but no, that's cool. I like that middle ability a lot. Now, of course, I'm just talking about like which specific ability of the 3 that I like. That doesn't mean that we have to take all the abilities that I like and mash them together on cards. Like, these ancillary abilities are fine for the cards that they're on. But I think it's more interesting to build around the abilities I do like. So that's why I'm just like focusing on those. And other people, you can give your input too. It's not just, I'm not just going to write down stuff that I like, but turning into land for both ramp and protection. Sorcerer says, I always envision them curling up and pretending to be a rock. Yeah, Sorcerers, I thought triple Kaladesh was great. It was like the aggro and control aspects of the game were so well balanced. Like, I couldn't figure out which was the right way to go. My whole draft group couldn't, you know. It didn't feel like one was stronger than the other. And so we had that like question of what's the better pick? Pack 1. Is it the Renegade Freighter, which is just severely aggressive and just a stupidly pushed common, or is it Prophetic Prism, which fixes your colors so you can do all the broken stuff and draws you a card and is an artifact for all the things that cares about it. So, big fan. All right. As I said in Discord, this card has, I guess, vibes. Yeah, I guess effects are neat. That's what IG stands for, right? We decided on that? Or is this LG? LG is a Planeswalker. Oh, okay. Ig. 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 Okay. I do not know that Planeswalker. Gunblade says you just make it a land where you keep upping the loyalty with Proliferate. Yes, that's a cool idea. Unfortunately, we cut our Proliferate mechanic from the set, but still, it would work. Oh, he's below in the Discord. Cool. So yeah, we covered this one. Moving on, we got one more. Okay. Ig, the Great Sower. It's a 1 green Planeswalker that comes in with 3 loyalty, and it says +1, create a 0/1 green plant creature token. Okay. 0, turn Ig, the Great Sower, face down. He is a forest land for as long as he remains face down. Turn him up at the beginning of your next upkeep. Okay, so I see. So, Mech Moose suggested a Planeswalker that has a similar ability to your Planeswalker Ig. Got it. So Ig is not for this set. I was just reading it through in order, so then I didn't get to this yet. Cool. So ignore that. Cute. Okay, so we got several ideas from the people in the Discord. Now it's time for me to give you my ideas. I did not make these yet, so I need to make them like right now. So let's make style mainframe walker. Here we go. Now this one would probably actually be a case file because this is well, their specimen Planeswalker. Boop. Oh my gosh, I typed all this out and I didn't realize you couldn't see it. Sorry. So that must have been really boring for you guys. Let me fix this. Go away. Nobody wants you. Okay. Do you think maybe a mono-white planeswalker could work for this set too? Oh, I just made one. Maybe themed around some kind of hazmat worker keeping things contained. Okay, so I guess let me explain my thought process for the walkers in the set. We know we want to have one planeswalker that has been captured by the organization and is being studied. We need one planeswalker that the organization has effectively like grafted a planeswalker spark, like a makeshift planeswalker spark into. So my thought process on that is like their spark doesn't work quite right. Maybe it's not like reliable. And I was thinking that would be like their agent, like the blue-black one, or Sorcerer suggested the colorless one. Those would all sort of be like the same, fill the same character slot. And then a third one, who some people have suggested is Kasmina. I don't necessarily have a thought, but I mean, I was thinking undercover, but character-wise, lore-wise, I'm not sure where they fit in. All right. Have Cole turned into a planeswalker after dying? I don't think so. I think Cole's just dead. Okay. Yeah, sorcerer. Yeah, so this is a walker with no activated abilities. The idea being she is in stasis, effectively. She's being studied in the lab. She's inert. So the idea being you can't activate her. So she's kind of more like an enchantment. She comes down and she can be attacked. But when she comes down, she is effectively an anthem for your creatures. Because she comes in with 3 loyalty, and at that point they get +1/+1. And then if you cast enough creature spells, she gets more loyalty and gives them new abilities. I was thinking maybe we can have a fourth ability. So she gives them like +1/+1 at 3 loyalty, maybe 1 ability at 5 loyalty, and another 2 abilities at 7 loyalty, so that it's less of a feast or famine. There's more of a middle ground. But this is what I'm thinking. All right. Nujugo says, I don't think it fits as mono-white. I like the idea of a static-only walker, but I don't think it fits as mono-white. Fair enough. Delilah as the agency one. Yes, Delilah would fit the same space as... what's mine? I named my blue-black one Gloom. My idea was that the process for spark transference didn't go well, and it left them as only a shadow. Wait, did we also come up with the same naming convention? Well, I figure it makes sense that this is that this one has like the name specimen whatever, because that's what it is. So I mean, obviously the Planeswalker would have their own name down here. I put just like Gemma because I thought it sounded kind of cool. But Cyber5 says, I know I've had the idea of some kind of giant monster getting a spark grafted onto it and having it be represented by having like 10 starting loyalty or so, but having abilities balanced around it naturally having so much loyalty. Yeah, that seems pretty cool. And of course, if you make it cost a bunch more mana, you can make those abilities bigger as well. Sorcerer says, do a massive, actually activated ult to signify her escape. That's pretty cool. We should give her escape. Maybe you could also have a Planeswalker in stasis flavor to it by giving it some kind of suspend-like mechanic. Interesting thought. Yeah, so I mean, suspend definitely works as a flavor for that. It's super complex, so I wouldn't want to just like throw it in this set. Although, here's the thing. Like I said, she's going to be in the case files, where we're doing all sorts of complicated mechanics anyway, so you may be onto something there. Jugo says, the spark transference thing could be why Delilah's a Gorgon. It could be taken from a Gorgon Planeswalker and have turned her into one. Sorceress has to pop off for a bit. All right, we'll see you later. We will have it all decided by the time you come back. If we're playing with Spark Transfer, we could make a colorless mythic creature of a Sparkless Planeswalker turned back into a creature. That's an interesting idea. Okay. Why do I do this to myself? It's probably just better if I put all this like in card notes. But at that point, let's just put it in one that I've actually turned into a Planeswalker. There we go. More of a flavor idea than a card idea. Still, that's a cool idea. Make a Planeswalker you can only cast if you have some amount of research counters. It feels like the agent, right? I'm sure being a Sparkless Planeswalker would suck. Ask Nixilis and Azor. Well, Azor did it to himself willingly and didn't seem to mind. Nixilis hated it. And he hated Nissa for doing it to him. We might want to go up to 5 walkers in the main set from the plan 3. I was thinking... yeah, I had said 3, but I wasn't thinking about the case files. So I was thinking maybe we have our specimen character, whether that's Bessie or Gemma or whoever, as 1 in the case file, and then we could have still 3 in our main set. Or have it enter with loyalty equal to your research, then it's useless at 0 research. That's a cool idea. Maybe for another case file card, maybe there could be a non-legendary uncommon-ish Planeswalker that can have any number of copies in your deck. Maybe flavored around failed attempts to make people into Planeswalkers. I love that. I love that. Case files, uncommon, non-legendary, have any number of Planeswalker representing failed experiments. Yeah, that's some cool ideas. Okay, so we want 5 Planeswalkers total. Okay, so here's where we get into the hard part, the part that always takes a lot of arguing. What specifically do we want to do? We know we want... Well, okay, let's start with which one do we want to do? Do we want to do our case file one, the one who's trapped, our failed experiment one that you can have any number of, our agent, who has had basically a makeshift spark grafted onto him, or the others I don't think are set in stone. Normally I don't like the non-legendary Planeswalker course, but I think it works here. I think it does too, and I think it's going to be, their abilities are probably going to be fairly minimal, and also probably just like minus loyalty abilities, kind of like the War of the Spark ones. I think that makes sense. So it won't be too powerful. The other is the rampagey one. There does need to be a rampagey one, doesn't there? Everyone else is a bit too docile. Okay, so Nujugo wants to start with agent. Let's start with agent. So we've talked about 4 different colors. Here, this one. Make it probably gold. And change it to a walker. We've talked about blue-black. Multiple people have suggested blue-black. We talked about white-blue. Or, I mean, I guess we could go white, blue, black if we want to get real into it. I think the uncommon Warwalkers, preferably not Narset or Ashiok. Yeah, those are the best ones. I vote for... Gunblade votes for a colorless walker that can flip creatures over. You mean for one of the non-agent ones? One of the two that we hadn't, like, determined yet? As in it can re-undercover stuff. Okay. Yeah, well, I had a suggestion for an undercover one. So that's actually a cool idea. I was trying to think of how to make it work well with undercover. Just let you turn your thing face down. Usually that's going to be a downside. Well, a short-term downside, because usually you're losing a better body. But what you're gaining is an extra creature in the long run. That's a cool idea, Gunblade. So we'll put that as... Undercover Planeswalker. And it would work with Colorless Matters. Yes, I had one of those on there too. Same thoughts. Okay. So, well, we know we want that one to be probably green-black, right? But I do really want this agent to be blue-black. Or at the very least, black. So maybe we'll just need to have multiple black ones. All right. I'm feeling blue-black. I know Nujugo is as well. So if anybody feels bad about the agent... Agent Planeswalker. If anyone has any other thoughts for the color, I know that there was a colorless one suggested. Oh, that's probably our fifth one, is the colorless one. If we're stealing a spark, does that mean we can finally kill off Chandra or Jace? Well, I think our specimen character, whether it's her or Bessie or whoever, is the one that is having the spark stolen. Except, I don't think her spark has actually yet been stolen. I think it's been recreated. They're trying to determine how to create a spark. They haven't figured out how to transfer it, and they've had some very fail-tacular experiments, and one starting success, which is this guy. So, what did we like? My thing. I don't really love my version of this guy, so I don't really even need to bring it up. But my concept is, yes, the experiment has worked, so this guy has had a Planeswalker spark grafted onto him, but it's chaotic. He can't necessarily control it perfectly. It's messed him up good. Him, her, or them. Whatever. So I was thinking something like... you know, when under a certain condition, you exile this Planeswalker and bring it back. So that would, like, reset its loyalty. And flavorfully, it would be just, like, they're randomly Planeswalking and quickly returning. Roll a d6 for the cost of activating. Okay. I do like the idea of entering with loyalty equal to the research. Or maybe their loyalty will slowly drain over time. The Wanderer flickers themselves? I think that might be Kaya you're talking about, unless it's something in story I don't know about the Wanderer. Enters the battlefield with loyalty counters equal to the number of research counters you have. So that would be a star. One ability. Nujugo says, and one of the loyalty abilities exiles it. No pluses. Yeah, that would be like Kaya, yep. That I know. I was thinking that it's 4 lines. Even if we just make it a short name, like Gloom or Delilah. Actually, it would just be, even that would be gone. La la la, I can spell. Even that's still 4 lines. I mean, I could make it shorter manually, but still. That's a lot for just a, like, stat-defining ability, effectively. Shouldn't it be 0, not a star, like with Dakan or Jeska? You may be right. Yep, you look correct. Wanderer unintentionally planeswalks. I did not know that. That would explain why they are the Wanderer, I guess. Interesting. Instead of the number of research counter, you have try your research counters equal to your research counters. That still works. And it definitely saves a line. At the very least, if it can't fit, its plus could be giving you a research counter. Yeah. Okay. I do really like the idea. I am worried about 3 lines for just an ability that isn't actually part of what the card is doing. But, cool. Welcome back, sorcerers. Okay, so then you definitely have to be heavy into research counters to be playing this card. This is not going to be a first pick windmill slam mythic. It's going to be a, can I build around this? Which is fine. So then we talked about, what did I really like about your version? Oh yeah, I liked the memorializing all the creatures and stuff. But yes, also flickering itself is kind of sweet because then it can come back. If you've gained more research counters, it can come back with more loyalty. Oops, where are we going? There we go. I figured it out. Does this program allow you to use a 4-ability Planeswalker frame? It sure does. I just got to go there and stop it. Go down. There we go. I think there was a line in where the Wanderer walks away from Ravnica and forces herself to come back. I was thinking maybe this agent basically half walks away and immediately walks back. Yeah, not having like control of it like other Planeswalkers would. That's sort of what I'm feeling like. Okay, a 0 where she self-exiles. Do I have to send her your control or just to the battlefield? I don't remember how Cloud Shift works. Cloud Shift actually says under your control, which is bad design because it lets you steal opponent's stuff permanently when it should be temporarily. I don't remember how that works. What if this is the Wanderer? That's interesting. I think the Wanderer seems to have some good tendencies, and I think this character has 0 scruples. Although we don't know that much about the Wanderer, so maybe we're wrong. Sort of like seeing other planes but not being able to fully go there. Yes, I remember that. She saw the Golden City, which, you know, they had prophesied about on Ixalan. It was the Lost City, except she was actually seeing Kaladesh. Okay. We know the Wanderer was... Oh, thank you. I should have looked at Kaya. Of course, we were talking about her. Under its owner's control. Is this exile? Kaya Ghost Assassin, or up to 1 target creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Yeah, they have to be less specific there because it could be exiling somebody else. So for future reference, if it returns immediately, You can do infinite. Oh, right. That's a good point. Oof, this is a mess. Okay, I like the flavor of it being chaotic, but I feel like both of these abilities together are doing a whole lot of nothing. So maybe we only want one of them, even though I like both ideas. What kind of skills would this planeswalker be trained into? Espionage, skullduggery, blackmail. This is probably like a member of the organization, and I don't think the organization is all as evil as some of it is. But I feel like this character is one of the worst members. That's my feeling. Make this the ninja planeswalker from Kamigawa with the robot Kitsune friend. I don't know that character. Maybe having a box standard murder minus ability. Fate Seal. Fate Seal is quite evil, yes. Okay. So, surveilling, right? If we want that, we can keep it, but it could be like a +1 to surveil. No, we do not need more words on here. This is the kind of person who would take being turned into a Gorgon and immediately start stoning things. I've designed some friendly Fate Seal cards before. I'm actually quite proud of those ones. Friendly Fate Seal. Interesting. I think we would rather lose the research counters than the self-exile. Here, yeah. From a purely mechanical perspective, I agree with you. From a flavor perspective, they have Kaya. They already have one planeswalker who exiles themselves and brings herself back and only has minus abilities. So that makes this a bit less unique if we go that way. And this is like our only chance to make a planeswalker that cares about research. But at the same time, mechanically, I do feel like the exiling thing works better. Friendly equals not horribly evil. Okay, that makes some sense. Well, let's try multiple versions. So we'll copy this card. Stop it. This card. All right. We will have one version that enters with loyalty equal to your research counters. Oh, and one version that can exile itself. Okay. So we'll start with this one. And if she starts with that much loyalty, she doesn't necessarily need a plus, right? Well, I mean, you may not have that many research counters, but the goal is to get big research. I believe that's the blue-black theme, was just as much research as possible. Maybe the Planeswalker could make research counters instead. That's not a bad plan. We don't want to make research counters too easy to get, but this is obviously a 2-color mythic, so it's not going to come up that often. Dakon has a plus. That's true. We could just make it so that it can still tick up. Sure. All right. So I feel like surveilling is very much in the wheelhouse. It could be a +1 to surveil 2. Now I'm also still a big fan of the. Let me find your thing again. Okay, so I see. She's a Gorgon, so she's turning everything to stone. The one that enters with a bunch of loyalty would be fun with a huge ult. Then if you have massive research, it ults on turn 1. Yes, that seems awesome. Maybe the minus could be make an XX horror creature token where X is the number of research counters you have, or something like that. That is also reasonable. That would be a way to care about research counters without necessarily having it come in with that many loyalty counters. Oh man, there's so many abilities to try and parse through, so many ideas. I appreciate them all. It's just hard to like get them all tried out. You could also make one of those weird zero abilities that still puts loyalty on the Planeswalker. One of the Chandras and Eldrin Garrett come to mind. Yeah, there's a Gideon that does it too. That could go on the other Delilah. That's a good point. It sure could. Okay, so does this feel like a big enough effect for this Planeswalker? If say you have as much loyalty as you could dream of, is this big enough to feel awesome? You know, I got 9 research. Play my Planeswalker, ult it immediately. Am I happy? I get to kind of board wipe. That's good. Surveil 2 for each card put into your graveyard this way. Put a loyalty counter on your Planeswalker. Interesting. That is an interesting way. That's a good way to make Surveil more interesting. I don't know if it'd be good enough as a control finisher. You may be right, Gunblade. Because that is what this deck is all about. It's control research. That's kind of your finisher. That's a good point. Sorcerer says on a 2-mana walker, yeah. So this is by no means final. I'm not saying this is a 2-mana walker. I'm saying I just put blue and a black on there because I know that it needs to be those colors. So I almost feel like that -6 could be smaller and single target. That's a good idea, Magmoose. It's an interesting take on the -3 destroy target creature that every black Planeswalker gets. You were thinking that for the other Delilah. Which part, Nujugo? Like the smaller version of this? Sorry, I'm having trouble keeping up. This one needs a big splashy hit. Okay, so cutting this. More on this version. Oops. Cool. And then, no. You said no. I thought you said yes. Or the smaller version of this. Okay. So copying this and making it like a -3 or something over here. That's what you're saying. We can fix it later. Okay. Maybe the ult could be turning all your creatures into into XX horrors, with X being your research, being a splashy payoff that still requires some setup if you ult it right away. At least until end of turn, I mean. Okay, so that is actually even like a different version of this, where instead of entering the battlefield with loyalty counters equal to your research, she is actually just like, you know, -6 creatures you control become XX horrors, black horrors, where X is your number X is equal to your research counters. Now, of course, you have to have creatures for this to be relevant. But, I mean, other, like, her first ability could make small creatures and then eventually turn them into horrors. Getting +X until end of turn is Planeswalker deck levels of bad. I was thinking permanent. I know Cyber 5 was saying could go either way. Feels like that wants to lead into going wide, which are completely out of blue-black's colors. If it's a Planeswalker you can ult right away, it shouldn't be one that can win you the game on the spot. Yeah, so the thing about that is, I feel like we don't want to have this both enter the battlefield with loyalty equal to your research counters, and then make your creatures, ult to make all your creatures XXs, where X is your number of research counters. I feel like we just want one or the other, so then it wouldn't necessarily be able to ult right away. If that makes sense. But it could be like a +1 to surveil to, or and then 0 to, like, you get a research counter. What about a reanimate? If you're surveilling stuff to the bin, it could be real good. Nah, it's not a bad idea. That's why variant 1 Wraths. It's a strong effect that doesn't just win you the game. You have 2 different +1s for either surveil or research. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't want to make getting research counters too easy. But I guess having this be a 0 and then, like, you can't take up to this. Well, yeah, so I guess this would make sense as a +1. Because it wouldn't be conducive to use this to get here. So, you're right. But I think I like the version that enters with this and then just needs to be a huge effect. How stupid is that? I feel like it needs to be even higher in that case. The horror variant needs a minus that defends itself. Sure does. Okay, Nujugo does not like this version. Will that version just have 2 loyalty abilities alone, or will it have a third one? I think that any version of the card that has simply like a stat-defining ability, effectively, needs to have 4 total abilities. Maybe need is a strong word, but I think it would probably play better, or be better with 4 total abilities. Oops. There we go. So then it would be like down here. I'm not getting a feeling of resonance yet. The abilities don't seem to really synergize or define a power suite to me. You're right. We need to determine what is this character about. We talked about they are a spy, but how is that, if we're trying to make a big ability, something massive, their ultimate, what would, in a perfect world, what would their end goal be? If they could just achieve anything they wanted. What's their motivation? And -3 stone a creature. Okay. I do like the stone a creature mechanic. I really do. I agree with Mars that we don't have like a cohesive power suite. Make this Nin. -3 stone, -8 gain control of all artifacts. I don't know what Nin... Oh, like Nin the Pain Artist? Who's blue-red. I mean, she could potentially change. What plane is she from? Do we know? She's a Vidalcan. We don't have Vidalcan on this plane. But you know, the Vidalcan tend to be researchers, so they would make some sense here. Maybe the Ult could exile a buttload of cards from the opponent's deck that you can cast yourself. Sever5 says Grixis, I think. Yeah, a blue-black Nin the Pain Artist seems rad. I really don't think this needs to be Nin. You're saying the character should be Nin, or we make the abilities sweet like Nin, or both? Like, I'm not married to it being like a Gorgon named Delilah either. I'm good with whatever makes the set. Oh, whatever makes the character work. I personally like the idea of it just like being a shadow, but I know Nujugo, this is your baby. This is hard. Making Planeswalkers is so difficult. The character. So you want it to actually be Nin. Nin was originally from Commander, the original Commander. So I'm not sure that she has like a definite plane that she's from. Because it's not like she was introduced on a world. And clearly then she's from that world. Slightly off topic, a red-green Planeswalker that ults for a second combat step would be really fun with raid and attack triggers. Yeah, and I don't think they've done that, have they? That's a real good idea. Stop it. What did you do? There we go. Okay. And did not have a home plane. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to get more water. You guys keep thinking. I'll be right back. All right. Okay. So, Sorcerers is saying Nin should be the character, then you get a -X where it deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you get X research. That makes some sense. Cyber 5 likes the Shadow idea more than the Gorgon idea. Makes the character seem more stealthy. Whew. Walkers are tough since you want them to be a proper character, and since they can reappear, you want them to have a consistent niche while still conforming to a set's themes. Right, and you also need them to have 3 or 4 abilities that are both flavorful and good, like you want to use them, and that work together. There's just so many things that you have to get right. They did do an extra combat ult with Zerial and AFR recently. Oh, that's too bad. I guess I haven't really looked at the AFR Planeswalkers because I haven't had too much of a chance to play with the set. I played a bit online, but I haven't really seen many Planeswalkers. Actually, I died to Mordenkainen, and that was fun. Okay, yeah, Zerial's ult gives you an emblem that gives you extra combat steps. AFR isn't in Magic Multiverse proper, right? So a Planeswalker that can do an extra combat step does not exist in the Magic Multiverse. That is correct, I think. Thinking of another way we could do this Planeswalker, maybe it could have an ability that gives you a loyalty counter, and maybe its ult could be a 0 ability that can only activate if you have enough research. Kind of like the Ajani from M20, right? The one that only activates if you have 15 life more than your starting total. They said AFR would be canon if it was successful enough. That's interesting. Nujugo really likes turning creatures to stone, and I think that's a neat ability that basically only fits in blue-black. Actually, interestingly, I do kind of feel like stoning fits in white because it's sort of a pacifism, right? It makes them not be able to attack or block. But their abilities remain. Although flavorfully, Gorgons are not white, but white also has an artifact theme in this set. Oh, man. Sorry. This is just really hard. I'd argue stoning probably fits more in Abzan color just with the ability to destroy any permanent. There's a lot. That's how that was supposed to be. It's not destroyed, though, and it's not any permanent. Okay, well, this is getting hard. We can keep working on it if we want. We could move on. Well, we could at least come up with a matrix of what the Planeswalkers are going to be. We could say for sure that we want a black-green one. For undercover. But it doesn't have to be black-green. It could just be green, or it could just be black. So we got 5 walkers. We want one to be Lab Rat, one to be Agent, one to be Undercover Dude, one to be Failed Experiment, and one to be, we haven't quite decided, maybe red-green, maybe colorless. All right, let's start with the experiment, the failed experiment, the one who's non-legendary, and you can have any number of them in your deck. Because I feel like we only need to give them 1 or 2 simple abilities. They don't have to be like a major interesting character. We could just do something simple. So let's move on to that, get at least some progress done. So then we have to decide which color we want that to be. The uncommon that isn't legendary could be a play on Relentless Rats because they were experimenting on lab rats. Oh. What color should they be? Should be monocolor, I think. I agree with you, Nujugo. I was trying to figure out which color. That is fun, Mechmoose. Mono black, just like the rats. Yeah, we could do mono black like the rats. Of course, we want our agent to be blue black, and we want our undercover guy to maybe be green black. So that would be a lot of black. We can do it. I mean, this guy's not like even a real full planeswalker, right? So it probably doesn't matter too much. A planeswalker that's a massive rat colony. Okay. So let's go to like what, black uncommons. Oh. This actually needs to go here. There we go. Okay, Style Walker. Isn't this from the case files? Oh, you're right. You're right. Okay, I'll just add a new one and move it to the case files later. That's easier than opening up another window and bringing it in. So we'll call this CF. I don't know, 01. Style, mainframe walker, black. Okay. Wait, we could bring Grist here. A walker with a minus to create a pack rat or rat colony. I forget which one. Be more creative, rat colony is the common, pack rat is the rare. Okay, so you're saying comes in with 5 loyalty, -1, each opponent loses a life, -3, make a rats like a relentless rats or rat colony token. Okay, so that would be create a black rat creature token named rat colony, no, rats, relentless rats with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of rats you control. Is that right? Just having Garth a selection of different rats. No! No more Garths. Please. I can't take it. I actually don't mind. I just think we don't want to lean on that. And I know you're being sarcastic, so. It's actually... I actually did this wrong. I worded both of these wrong. Create a 2/2 black rat creature token named Relentless Rats. With Relentless Rats gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield named Relentless Rats. Excellent. And then this is actually just a deck may have any number of cards named this card name. Oops. Whew. I should ask, what other kinds of stuff are you looking for other case file cards? Yeah, so really, we're just trying to do stuff that is both weird and really interesting. Often probably using old mechanics, but we haven't really made the case files yet. That's something we had decided to save for like near the end of the set. So really, it's just whatever you want. Flavorfully, they should be things that the organization would have an interest in categorizing and potentially containing. So weird stuff that could pose a danger to the inhabitants of the plane. Wait, if we don't give it a type, then it won't die. If we don't give it a Planeswalker subtype, it won't die if you control multiples of it, so then we don't have to write that you can have multiples of it. It won't anyway. It would if it has the same name. Oh, it's not legendary. Oh. Good point. I do still question if we need to give it a subtype. What would we give it? I mean, it could just be experiment. Oh, good point. Thanks for pointing that out. Planeswalker uniqueness rule is dead. Yeah, you're right. I was just forgetting that like it's not legendary. So it's so ingrained at this point. This should be like 3 mana. Wanderer doesn't have a subtype either. Ooh, so there's precedent, is what you're saying. Ooh, there is. Okay, I'm sticking with it. Think the time shifted from the original future site. Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. Yeah. I like the idea of it not having a subtype, just all the failed experiments being indistinguishable from one another. Also should be an uncommon. Good call. Do it. Tribal Planeswalker. Ooh. Unfortunately, Tribal has to give a creature type. Tribal Planeswalker, rat. You've convinced me. I like the all being warped beyond recognition. I did like that idea too, Cyber5, but I was thinking that these were people originally, but now we've turned into them being rats, which actually does make some sense. You would experiment on rats before you experiment on people. And yeah, this is not a Planeswalker type, so this still has no plane. It's still a Planeswalker with no Planeswalker subtype, but if that's the case, it should make Rat Colony instead of Relentless Rats. You are probably right. Because it is itself a rat, and rat colonies benefit from that, whereas relentless rats do not. Oops. Stop it. This way. Rats. Creature token with. This would be 2/1. Creature human rat. how Dryad is not a land type and Forest is not a creature type despite Dryad Arbor. Correct, yes. You don't cross the streams. Yeah, I don't think it wants to be a human rat. Probably. So, this costs 3 mana. You play it, you tick down, and you get a 3/1. And that makes sense. A 3/1 for 3 in black with some other upside, that being that you could make them lose a couple extra life, or you could take have even more rats. Seems like about the right price point. Ah, thank you. Named rat colony. Oh, shoot, I put that before the word token. Black red creature token. Named rat colony. With rat colony gets +1 for each other. Yeah. And change -3 to -2. Okay. At -2, for 3 mana, you're going to get 2 4/1s. So, obviously, if one dies, and then when the Planeswalker dies, that's, they'll go down in power. But we would definitely have to increase the cost of this card. Over 2 turns, and they are easy to die. That is true. But, I mean, come on. Are you going to be very happy to turn 3 drop this, get a 3/1, and then turn 4 have a free extra 3/1? I still think that's very... I mean, and then potentially make them 4/1s. Potentially not, but... They'll likely attack the walker after the first win is made, if they have a creature. I mean, you play this on the play on turn 3... Your opponent may not have a turn 2 play. They may have kept a slightly slow hand. I think that to cost this at 3 would be irresponsible. Nujugo suggesting 1 black. Definitely better, but I still think it might need to be 4 mana. But I do feel like at 4 mana, we lose out on being able to play a bunch of these, which is sort of the point. Uh-oh, what happened? An error occurred with the output. Interesting. Oh, I think I know what happened. You guys can still see me, right? We're still good. I liked it making the token with a -3 ability. Yeah, I think that that's a lot safer. Then you just run multiple walkers for the bigger effects. Yeah. Now, obviously, you want... Let's compromise. Okay, cool. Thank you. I just got an error from my Streamlabs, and I wanted to make sure. So, let's have this still only make 1 creature, because I think that's reasonable. But let's have rat tokens in the set, so that you could use them. We could replace our 2/1 horror tokens with 2/1 rat tokens. And that would help buff your walker colony dudes. I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Make the horrors horror rats. Thank you. That makes sense. Okay. We only have, I think, 2 cards so far that make them. There's that one, and... No, I went the wrong way. Don't forget, if this is a case file, it doesn't need super synergy either. It doesn't need super synergy. I would like to have some synergy, though, since it's not in the main set. Yeah, I mean... That's reasonable. I still think it would be cool to have some synergy with it. So, I like this. And it's a small change. There's still horrors. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do we have any other? No, I don't think so. Okay, and then what should the name be? Failed experiment? Is that a card? There's failed inspection. There's no failed experiment. This is a lot easier than the blue-black eye. Yeah, it's a lot easier when you don't have to make it an interesting character that has a lot of... This is much easier. Especially since we knew that we wanted it to have fewer abilities and only tick down. Cool. So I'm really happy with this guy. And 2 hours in, we got one Planeswalker done. It's not one of our main ones, but the problem with a specific subject number is that it creates the impression that it is, in fact, a specific legendary Planeswalker. So I feel like it should be a more generic name. Oh, that's what you're saying is 219 2 421. I see. I was just seeing it as one long number. Sometimes it's easier to work around a simple premise and flesh it out from there. Yeah. Maybe we could give the project a name. Project, like they would, a real government agency would give this some sort of excellent name, like Project Icarus. Maybe it could be called Project R4 Type 5 or Project Rats. That's funny. Threshold is the... Oh, let's see. Some 200 items. Threshold is the warp. How about... Yeah, Icarus is probably not like what we really want, but they're trying to discover how to planeswalk, like this other character did. R4 Type 5 Threshold. Starlight. Well, it's better than Icarus. I mean, we could do rats. I get that R4T5 is rats. I was trying to figure out, like, R4 Type 5, Threshold, is that the name you're suggesting? It doesn't need the failure. I feel like in order to convey that this is, in fact, one of hundreds of failed experiments, we do need some kind of word in the name that denotes that, since we don't have flavor text to rely on. It could just be experiment. I thought failed experiment was fine. Discontinued? I don't know. We're probably spending too much time on the name. It's not a big deal. But we got a working Planeswalker, guys. So, what do we want to do next? We got... Check. We could do our undercover dude. We could do our new lab rat, the currently held planeswalker. I can't use the title failure on my other planeswalkers. You need to be encouraging instead. Okay, let's move on to Sorcerer says another walker. Okay, so let's try to do the other case file walker. The basically the origin of Project R Type 5, whatever. The one that they were like investigating right now. They caught themselves a planeswalker, and they are going to find out how that spark works. So my version of it is a planeswalker who's imprisoned. They have no activated abilities. They have all passive abilities. Now, Sorcerer's version of it is Bessie, who is just a giant sandworm. So, there's clearly some different ways that you can go with this. Nujugo likes the idea, but not the specific implementation. Sure, this is more of a... This was meant to be more of a, like, proof of concept. So, I'm okay if you do not like this implementation. Okay, so you like the concept of a walker with no activated abilities, but not these necessarily. Is that what you're saying? Captured walker. Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it needs to be white, red, or green to contrast with the blue-black one who's like trying to steal their powers. So... maybe it could be like the Bahamut Planeswalker, with it becoming a creature or something when it reaches a certain number of loyalty counters. Or maybe it just transforms. Ooh, transformation would be a good way to convey escaping. Another point that got brought up that I hadn't considered is, since this is in the case file, it could use whatever mechanic we want it to. Bahamut Planeswalker, I don't know that one. Oh, that's from Grandmaster of Flowers. What's a 7 or more loyalty counters? It's a 7/7 Dragon God creature. Okay, gotcha. So it's like him reaching enlightenment. Yeah, transform could work. Gmoff. What if the idea is that Planeswalker abilities are being activated by the agency rather than itself? A phasing, walking ability seems like a useful weapon they would want. Yeah. This is an enchantment in Planeswalker clothing, so I think I support some kind of transformational effect. It is an enchantment in Planeswalker clothing. With the important caveat that it can still be attacked. Doesn't need to be a DFC, though. Okay, so you want it to transform in some way. You don't want it to be just completely trapped. That's fine. We can put that in. Because it seems like there's a couple people feeling that way. Three enchantments in a trench coat. That's funny. I don't know if that counts as transformation. Spacing is weird. Oh, there was an extra enter. There we go. Of course, if that just wins you the game, like it feels like all this was doing nothing. Obviously, these abilities would change. I'm just giving options for what the transformation could be. It's not quite a transformation, though. As long as has 9 or more loyalty counters. It's a... Do we want this to be a double-faced card or a spark loser? Oh, I guess in the story, does she lose her spark? How about that? How about that? So if it dies, it comes back transformed. And then it's just like a normal human? Kind of like, or I guess whatever race it is. It should actually probably not be human because there's so many freaking humans on this plane. Give us a little bit of variety. I kind of like a DFC more, just gives more real estate to work with for abilities. Okay. So, where do we select that? Double-faced. La la la. Where are you? Mainframe DFCs, all the way near the end. Okay. Oh gosh. Being trapped is not a superpower. Right. What are this character's actual powers? That's a good point. I don't know. So based on my current version of it, its powers were going to be like... Oh, sorry. This is really messing with the templating of stuff. What was I going to say? My basic idea was that her passive powers on the front side are her abilities sort of like still leaking out and affecting things while she's trapped and probably unconscious. So whatever her like passive abilities on the front face are would match sort of the idea of her abilities on her creature side. Okay, now how do I turn this into Planeswalker front face? Darn it. Front style. 4 ability Planeswalker. Thank you. Okay. DFC Walker, not mainframe DFC. The style below the one you have selected. Oh. This one looks like it's interesting. Are you sure we don't want it to be mainframe DFC? It's that drop-down menu. Ah, Sacrificer. Still causing problems. Let's see. I'm sorry. This is taken me some time. Now I need to find a way to make it 4 abilities. Because I don't see that option here. You almost certainly want to use mainframe DFC. Okay, cool. That's what it felt like. I get that. I'm trying to figure out what their niche would be in comparison with other white planeswalkers. Yeah, because this is just pumping all white creatures, right? That's not special. Or it's not pumping all white creatures, it's just pumping creatures, and it's white. Okay, so it turns into a creature. It turns into a white creature. Now, it doesn't have to have all these abilities that pump all your creatures. It just, that's the first thing that I came up with. I was just trying to toss an idea together quickly. So, we could do something more interesting with white if you want. mean, it could be like creatures with power less than card names. Loyalty. Can't attack. Something like that. Maybe you could have something like human creatures you control have protection from non-human creatures. Ah, crap, hold on. This is still... I need to shrink this so that it works in OBS. Good enough. Okay. All right, what if she empowers equipment? That would be a good passive ability. Maybe you could have something like human creature. Oh, right, I said that. That ability is a big yikes. I mean, I guess the way that you would generally remove a planeswalker is to attack it, so it making you unable to attack unless you have a big enough creature could be a problem. I don't know if it's automatically a big yikes, but I'm just throwing out suggestions here. You know, feel free to submit your own designs. What if she's the power source for all that endothomic stuff? What if she's a spirit planeswalker? Maybe it's an angel planeswalker, but the agency didn't know about sparks, but thought they were getting a glimpse into divinity and heavenly powers or something. Okay. Angel planeswalker seems good. I don't think we have any of those yet, because I don't think angels can technically have their own spark to start with, but we don't necessarily have to care about that. Sarah's not technically an angel. She's a human who has a bunch of angels. Angels is just white mana in Magic the Gathering. If she's a spirit planeswalker, I've got a character for that. Well, she could be a spirit. She could be an angel. I'm good with that. But we do need an ability suite. Can a planeswalker have activated abilities that aren't loyalty abilities, like an ability you pay mana into? It sure could. That's an interesting idea. I don't think they've done it yet, but I don't see why they couldn't. It also doesn't have to have 4 abilities. It could just have like 3. And not actually care about its loyalty. Maybe its loyalty is just static. I mean, until it gets hit. That would be interesting. Ugh, now I need to... 3 ability. Boop. Generally, undead can't hold a spark, but even then, I think there are workarounds. A lich, for example, would probably work, although holding onto your phylactery all the time is probably a bad idea. What if at the beginning of your turn, if she has X loyalty, you make a blade token, but then what would... Oh, to me, what would motivate your opponent to attack into it? It's just a bunch of passive abilities that are helpful. It's like... Flip side can't be too good if you're planning on having it flip on deaths instead of activating an ability, since it would be almost guaranteed to get. That's true. Okay, well... It's super unlikely to flip if your opponent has to kill it. Look, I'm... All right, we had a suggestion that at the beginning of your turn, if she has X loyalty, you make a blade token. That seems reasonable. I mean, there you go. You're getting a passive effect. That would motivate people to attack into it. Create a weapon token. Or whatever we're calling it. Maybe when it enters the battlefield, it can be like an O-ring. That's also a good idea. Target non-land. Then it's like she's not just being imprisoned. She is a prison. Yes, O-Ring encourages attacking it because then you get your thing back. Or, just like a passive every turn, you get this ability bonus. That also encourages attacking it. So there's ways we can do it if she's not gaining loyalty. Or maybe just exiling a creature or planeswalker only for research. I like it being non-land permanent simply to save words. Actually, I guess maybe it won't save that much space if we just put creature or planeswalker. Planeswalker. Oh, it stretched it. It's not a huge deal, though. Then on the creature side, she can care about equipment. That's a reasonable idea. So, what white planeswalkers care about equipment so far? There's Nahiri, but mostly just mono white Nahiri. The more recent ones, I don't. Maybe the War of the Spark one cares about it. Let me see. She does. She does. So we do have Nahiri who cares about equipment, but we can make this different. Now there's a mono white Nahiri that cares about equipment. That was the first one that we got. Way back in Commander 2014, I think. Okay. So, but yeah, caring about equipment, that seems good. I mean, she could get bigger for each equipment you have. It could just be like tap, equip, attach all equipment you control to target creature at like instant speed. Might be a bit worse as an attacker if she has to tap to do it. That's an option. Mono white Nahiri's from 10,000 years ago. It doesn't count. It's still a planeswalker card in the game. And the new ones are still white planeswalkers that care about equipment. So even if this is mono white, that doesn't make it not in the same domain. We still want to try and make it sort of distinct. Maybe equipped creatures having some kind of protection. Ooh. Yeah, like equipped creatures you control. Simpler. Each equipment you control have equipped creature has ward 1. That's a way to protect it. Flavor question, how do you tie the O-ring effect from the equipment side? I agree with you, that feels off. We can work on that in a moment. If you can resolve that, I think you'll find the difference with Nahiri. Give it vigilance as well. Vigilance. Oops. Yeah, Vigilance is always great on a Voltron character. If she protects things by imbuing them with magic, that might work. A sort of enchanter variant. Yeah. Oh, Vigilance was for when it had the tap ability. Oh, sorry. That's a good point. But Vigilance is good with Voltron characters, so it still wouldn't be bad if she had it. I don't know. This is interesting. I think this is good. So we do still need to figure out how the O-ring ties into it, or if we just need to change this ability whatsoever. Privileged Positions. I don't remember what that card does. I will go look it up. Other permanents you control can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Oh boy. Other permanent... So yeah, all your stuff has hexproof. Or flying if she's a spirit. Oh, good point. Or if she's an angel, which she probably is an angel, right? Or a spirit. I'm good with whatever. But flying makes some sense. It ties into giving the swords ward 1 on the backside. It does. That's a good point. I have to go out. Good luck with this. Looking forward to next time. Well, thank you for hanging out, Mars. Thank you for all of your suggestions, contributions. We really appreciate you hanging out. Have a good night or day or whenever it is, wherever you are. Word like 3 should go here. Yeah, so you're seeing this ability is clearly much better than this ability, which is kind of cool. It makes sense. She's lost her spark. She's lost a lot of her power, right? She no longer makes weapons. She just uses the weapons that she has. Well, actually, she probably never herself made weapons, right? They made weapons out of her abilities and then imbued them with her power. Just realized this should definitely be legendary. Oh, well, yeah. I think I still haven't adjusted, actually, to making things legendary, but good call. To making the Planeswalkers specifically legendary. What stat line should the creature have? Like a 1/3. Yeah, I guess it also depends on how expensive the front side is, because it doesn't have to be white. The version that I had originally made sense as a white, just like 2 mana. But 2/2 is fine. Oh, man. This is a cool Planeswalker. I'm enjoying this. I think 1/3 works, so it reflects the 3 loyalty on the Planeswalker side. That's cool. And the blades, the weapons that she creates give +1/+0. So this will help balance out her stats once you start equipping her with stuff. Ward 3 on everything is probably more than 2 mana. I think I agree with you. That's very good. We could go up to 3 mana and like ward 2. I know that's significantly weaker, but it's still probably pretty good, right? And then, I don't know. Question, does Ward stack? If her back half has like 5 equipment, does she have Ward 5? She sure does. Escapee. Foundation. It's interesting, because, like, she's escaped from her prison, right? But she's lost her spark, so she's still trapped in an even bigger prison. Gemma liberated? Question mark? Archive Rebel? That sounds a bit better. Oh yes, she has 5 instances of Ward 1. That's true. Technically different than Ward 5, but for most intents and purposes, functionally the same. Okay, well, we can quibble about names and creature types later. For now? True, she's not a rebel creature type. Renegade. There we go. Renegade. Beautiful. So, we've accomplished 2 of our 5 Planeswalkers. Also, she is not our Mythic White Planeswalker. She is in the case files. I guess she is a Mythic White Planeswalker, but she's not Mythic White 01. There we go. It's not supposed... whatever. Just giving them random numbers. Make her white-red on the back? I don't know if that's necessary. That feels kind of weird. Oh, I guess you're saying because she's a rebel? Nujugo wants it to be a spirit. Alright. We can figure out the creature types on these planeswalkers better later, and stories on them. For now, I don't care too much. Here, we can leave it spirit for now. But let's move on. Do we want to work on our undercover planeswalker? And if so, do we want that to be like black-green or just green? I would say just black, but I feel like we have enough black already. Cyber 5 is down for that. Excellent. How much time do you have? Starting another Planeswalker could take a while. Generally, I want to go for 3 hours, which would be in 15 minutes. But I'm open to going longer. So it could go as long as 4 hours, though that's a bit pushing it. So we can do one more. We're not going to get through all 5, but we could definitely do one more. If it takes half hour, 45 minutes, that's okay. We have 2 monocolor planeswalkers in the case files, so the rest of the planeswalkers should be multicolor, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with this being green-black and our agent being blue-black. I could see having a colorless one as well, but that would do a disservice to green-red, so I don't know. Or just to red in general, I guess. Okay, so we're making another Planeswalker. Whatever. MZ02. Green and black. Default colors, please. Planeswalker. Okay. Legendary. Planeswalker. And it has undercover. 1 colorless, 1 2-color, 1 3-color? Not sure. 3 colors pretty unusual, so in a weird set, might be a better place to do it. If the undercover Planeswalker was to get a 3rd color, it would be blue. Maybe it could be Jund colored. I mean, I guess it could. Undercover is like more in blue than the other colors, but that doesn't mean we couldn't do a Jund undercover. Jundercover, as it were. Okay, so somebody mentioned being able to turn your face-up creatures back face down. And that sounds pretty dope. Turn target creature you control face down. If it doesn't have undercover, it gains undercover. Go away. And go away. You'd probably want blue and not red if you do that ability. Turning face down is way more blue. That's a good point. It's a good point. Sounds pretty cool, though, doesn't it? It does match the colors of Undercover better. But then we do need to find a way to fit in a red walker. Probably. We don't, like, have to. But. Although then it's weird to have, like, this green-blue-black guy and a blue-black guy. Right? Also, it should say target non-land permanent, then he can turn himself face down. Huh. Interestingly, if he did that, he would still have his loyalty counters, even though they wouldn't do anything for him while he's face down. Oh, we put in Domri. We have had suggestions for a red-green Planeswalker. I would say giving something undercover is more of a black ability in this context, sort of something like Supernatural Stamina. It is. It's kind of like a preemptive Supernatural Stamina, but definitely much weirder and less simple. Okay, what did I have for this guy? That's sort of covered by this ability. But it can't be turned face. But it can't be turned face up on the battlefield. Yeah, no, it can't. I was saying it keeps its loyalty, but that doesn't do anything helpful for it. It just still technically has it. You'll have the counter still on the card. The thought is, if he gets low loyalty and about to die, turn face down so you can recast him after death. That's a good point. So should it not cost very much to turn stuff face down? I feel like it would need to cost something, but then you get into the confusing territory where if he has 1 loyalty left and you -1 him to activate this ability on himself, does he die? And the answer is yes, he does die. But that would be a bit unintuitive, perhaps. Unrelated, but does anybody have cool ideas for a green mythic? I had one the other day and I forgot to write it down. So now I've lost it. Yes, he would die, but it might be confusing. So maybe he can't target himself, even though I know that's kind of the point. How about one that doesn't make treasure tokens or elks? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be even super fancy, super exciting. It's just like it's an undercover planeswalker, and that's pretty cool. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It could just be as simple as that. It's not particularly exciting. Like, its abilities aren't super flashy, but it is fun to have, like, oh man, this guy's undercover. I don't know. What do you guys think? It should be really expensive to justify the undercover. You're saying so that you have the dichotomy of choosing between playing a 2/2 on 3 or just waiting till you have more mana to cast this? Okay, I can see that. And in my opinion, the turn face down ability shouldn't give undercover. Yeah, because as is, this lets you loop any creature. So, that's definitely a reasonable argument. So, that you would have to actually build with undercover creatures in mind if you want to bring them back. Which would make this a more interesting build around, which I love for limited. Maybe an ability that can regrow colorless permanents from your graveyard. Well, unfortunately, Cyber 5, if this is like the undercover planeswalker, that doesn't work with, like, the caring about colorless cards in your graveyard does not work with them. Because they are only colorless while they're on the battlefield face down. That way you can turn your opponent's stuff into 2/2s as well. Oh. That's a good point. You could also just say, turn target creature face down. That can kind of function as removal, although that does get a bit more into blue territory. Yeah, it's a 2/2. It could have the Faceless Reanimating spell as a -. Right. Null Revival, there it is. Okay. Okay, so that's cool. So I think we need one or the other of those abilities. It can either reanimate something as a face down 2/2, or it can turn something face up into a face down 2/2. Obviously, one of them can be good to hit your opponent's creatures and turn them just into small creatures. It kind of seems like a blue thing, though, like Ixodron. Yes. So the sorcerer's ability is more green-black. We could have this be blue, green, black, and then we could have the, like, shadow agent be like white, black instead of blue, black. But that does bring him even closer to Kaya. Him, her, whatever. Or, I mean, black-green is perfectly capable of reanimating something as a face-down 2/2. Shoot. In fact, if we put Faceless Revival, Null Revival, on here as an ability, maybe we just cut that from the set, make it special on here. I've also done the turn a thing face down on a blue walker before. Yeah, it's definitely more blue. Is a face down creature with undercover still undercover if you don't pay that cost? Asking because there is different tokens for Morph and Manifest, and since the undercover cost ability wasn't paid, would it inherently game the exile self thing? Yes, it will as long as it has undercover on the front face, the way that it works is when it's face down and dies, you can put it into exile face down and later cast it. So, yes, this would still work with your undercover creatures, which is good. I think, while I like being able to turn anything face down, that is more blue, and I think we want to shy away from that. So, I like putting Null Revival on here. So, it reanimates the thing slowly. Plus one ability doesn't have to be a +1/+1 counter. I was just trying to think of something that might be good. What about the for +1 giving the creature a bonus if it's colorless? Ooh. Or put an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Or it gets Death Touch. Death Touch is green-black. This could be the guy with Surveil on Plus. Works well with Reanimate abilities. Ooh, that's a good point. What do you guys think of that? Obviously, Surveil feels more blue, but any color can get it. And even though it hasn't been in green, being able to put stuff from the top of your deck into your graveyard, self-mill is very green-black. So, instead of the -2, mine is bigger and it returns multiple creatures. Yeah, we do need to justify it costing a lot of mana. Or maybe having both, no ult. Both Surveil 2 and put a +1/+1 counter on a thing. And still also this, but no big ultimate ability. Or, alternatively, ooh, -XX, return X creatures. Interesting. That could be good. How well does -XX fit on here? Just barely. Return X. I like that. It does look strange. But strange is our wheelhouse, and it does work. It's the paranormal set. Yeah, so if this is costing a bunch of mana, 6 or whatever, how much loyalty does it come in with? Does it come in with 4, which would let you immediately... Yeah, I feel like 4 is okay, because for 6 mana, that would let you reanimate 2 small things as 2/2s. So if you do that immediately, you're not getting that much out of it. 4 to 5, yeah, seems like a good range. 5 would let you bring it back, or like play it, reanimate 2 small things, and leave with 1 loyalty on it, and then you could keep surveilling. That seems good, but also 6 mana Planeswalkers are probably usually even better than this one is. So I think 5 is okay. And then you also have the option to play this at half mana as a 2/2. This seems great. Yeah, the ult is not that game winning. It's fine. But I like that it's really interesting. All right, flavor. Yes, flavor. What do we want this guy to do? So are we just giving it 2 abilities too? I think that this many abilities is fine. I think that Undercover by itself does a huge amount for increasing the dynamic nature of the card. You can either play it as a 2/2 for 3, and then when it dies, later play it still as a Planeswalker, or you can just, save up and play it as soon as you can and get the ability. So I do know, like, obviously, once you have it in play, you only have 2 abilities to do, and that's not super exciting. But still, it only takes 2 turns of ticking this up to be able to activate this on a creature. So it's still relevant even once you've like ulted it the first time. This is Gulkux. He's a dude who just wants the world to end. Bam, 10 out of 10 writing and motivation. Garruk and Vraska are the only canon green-black Planeswalkers I can remember, and this doesn't feel like a grist to me. Nissa is also black-green, and sometimes blue. If he's undercover, would he have a Planeswalker type too? He probably would. You just wouldn't know what it is while he's undercover. Yeah. This is hella not Nissa, and Nissa is dumb. Sure. So, yeah. This really doesn't align with any of those characters. Black-green Garruk and Vraska are all about destroying stuff. Garruk just mostly creatures, and Vraska can destroy anything. Black-green Nissa was like, what were her abilities? I know it was landfall, get a loyalty counter. Turn a land into a menace creature. And either reanimate or put something into play for based on the number of lands you control. So she did reanimate a thing. So actually, this is kind of the closest analog we do have. So it's a thing disguising itself as a human, right? Yes. Gorok, brother to the angry guy. Not sure if this would work, but the idea of this being some kind of swamp monster planeswalker is floating around in my head. I do like something like that. Okay. Swamp monster. Okay. I guess we don't necessarily have to define like what its creature type would be. We could just say it's a swamp monster named blah. Tree folk planeswalker. Oh. So it's not masquerading as a human, it's masquerading as a normal tree. I kind of like the tree folk idea. But that's just me. I'm hearing 3 votes for swamp monster. I guess we kind of have a tree folk planeswalker in Ren and 6/Ren and 7, but Ren is really the major guy there, and that's a dryad, right? Treefolk could be a swamp monster for all we know. Okay, I'm going to take the O out of Voragel. I feel like Vragel feels more swampy. It's true, the card does not have a creature type. We will need to find some art for it, though, and at that point, the decision is kind of made. As a treefolk, Subversive copes. The Thing Below. Ooh, the Thing Below. So kind of like the Bog from the Children of the Nameless book? Or novella. Cool. I'm a fan of this guy. Well, man, okay. These last ones have not been as bad. Maybe it's really just the blue-black planeswalkers that we have a lot of trouble with. Because I remember Davriel from the last set, from Neil Devar, also gave us a lot of trouble. And he was also blue-black. All I can think of is Swamp Thing from DC Comics. Yeah, just imagine a pile of mud. Grows a face. Stands up. He's like, hey man, how's it going? You catch the game last night? I am normal human man, just like you. Just swamp things. Okay. So we need Delilah, or whatever we want our agent to be, and one more. Possibly red, possibly colorless, maybe 3-color, who knows? Swamp Thing is literally living amorphous plant mass. Interesting. Well, apparently I don't know my DC that well. Nujugo, are you saying you want it to cost both red and colorless mana? Like that? That's a cool idea. It's not something we've done yet. Okay. Yes, I am a real man. You all want to go skateboard? What is up, fellow humans? Maybe we could use a color and a colorless mana from like OGW. Okay, Cyber 5, yeah, is saying the same thing. Actually, that's a really cool idea. It goes sort of like with the colorless theme from Red Blue. I like it. Porque no los dos. Okay, so the ideas that we had, let me go back to here. We did the walker with no activated abilities. We did the walker that turns back into a creature. We did an undercover planeswalker. We did failed experiment. Okay. So our red idea was like extra combat step. Our colorless idea was like stealing something from the opponent, but then still needing the right colors of mana to play it. And it doesn't parse quite as well on a actual red and colorless planeswalker, but it's still a thought. Give the walker to Void for memes. Definitely not an Eldrazi. They can't, they don't need to be planeswalkers. They can already move between the worlds. So Chandra, right? That's everyone's favorite character. She's into, long walks on the beach and decidedly male types. Okay, so -3 target creature gets Annihilator 2 until end of turn. Okay, So she could care about colorless things for red-blue. She could give us an extra combat step for like raid aggressive type stuff in black-red or red-green. Maybe some kind of lava coil like effect for a minus. That's that 4 damage to a creature and exile it if it dies. Yup. Oops. Oh, hold on. La, la, la. Oh, I can put it right there. There we go. Damage from red, exile from colorless. That makes sense. You don't get that from Chandra, do you? She doesn't exile stuff. Oh, she does. Not all of them, though. It's hard, because so many versions of her have exile as a like impulse draw. So I was just looking for exile. Anyhow, that would work. I guess, what do we want this character to be? Can we make their power suite more different and interesting than Chandra? I don't know. I feel like Red's power suite is mostly deal damage to stuff and impulse draw. And Chandra does both of those things. It's probably why we haven't had nearly... I feel like we don't get that many different mono-red planeswalkers that aren't Chandra. Maybe it's like some kind of flame-throwing robot cyborg? That feels pretty cool. Or we could have this be like an alien. Like a stereotypical, gray from, X-Files. Something like that, if we wanted it to, because like people were suggesting that the colorless was more like an alien. Ghostfire Walker. Do we have many sources of colorless mana in this set? Not currently. That is literally the Eldritch Moon Chandra. Let's see. Will it work if I do this? Oops. No. Okay, we have Shades of Observation. We have Warped Landscape. So that's 2 commons that can do it. That's actually decent. That actually just really makes me like the Warped Landscape pick that much more. I think it's doable. It's a planeswalking goblin, and they just assume it's an alien because they have no goblins. Oh, I guess, let's see. There is Duretti. Who cares about artifacts? What else can Red care about? Maybe we should just have it care about colorless stuff. What about, like... deals 3 damage to target creature. If that creature is colorless, it gets +3/+0 until end of turn instead. So it's like a modal ability. You can either deal 3 damage to a colored creature, or give 3 power to a non-colored creature. Is that good? Is that weird? Huh? A Phoenix Planeswalker. We did do a Phoenix. Phoenix Planeswalker would be interesting. You'd have to like combine it, so it has loyalty abilities, of course, probably only minus abilities, and when it dies, you can find a way to replay it somehow. Red also does get Exile Matters. That's a good point. It has colorless mana. It probably wants to be in a deck that cares about colorless mana. Right. I think that works. Here, hold this fire. So, I mean, this is kind of ghost fiery. Only colorless things can hold it, right? But we don't have to do that. But we do kind of want to care about colorless. I mean, impulse draw exile stuff. So we could do that. Colorless abilities. All right. So I don't know. Say she enters with 4. Say this is -2. I mean, that's really good right there. Say it's -3. Because it does potentially kill a creature. Exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn, and it costs 3 less if it's colorless. Ooh, don't know if that works with Undercover. Discard 2 cards, then draw a card for each colorless creature you control. Mechmoose is saying that sarcastically. It could be good, though. So we got artifact token creatures. We got Undercover. It does not work with Undercover. Yeah, that's sort of what I assumed. Because when you cast it, actually, I think it might. I think it might actually work. It's confusing as heck. But I think by the time it checks to see, like, by the time you actually have to pay the cost, the spell is already on the stack as colorless. But it is confusing as heck, so maybe it's not worth putting in for that reason. It doesn't, the card isn't colorless. Only to... you may play it last turn, and it costs 3 less if it's colors. Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm thinking of this wording. Like, add 3. Spend this mana only to cast colorless spells. You're right. I was thinking of it as adding mana, not as a cost reduction. I think if it's add mana and use this mana only on colorless spells, then you can use it to play Undercover things. I'm sorry, I was just getting confused. All right. Mechmu says it would probably be busted if repeatable, which is why I said it sarcastically. Got it. I mean, if it's a minus ability, it's not as repeatable, right? So, like, we could make this a +1 to deal 1 damage. And then the -3 could be discard 2 cards, then draw a card for each colorless creature you control. I don't know that these abilities are necessarily synergistic. They both care about colorless creatures, but they don't, like, feed into each other. But I actually do still kind of like that ability, Cyber 5. So, like, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. It costs... Have the +1 deal 1 damage and remove colors from that creature until end of turn. Interesting. Then you can hit your own things to make more colorless stuff. We could just have it be permanently colorless. Obviously, that's a lot to keep track of. That's not something you want to do all over the place. But I can think of at least one example of when they've done it in the past. So it's not like there's no precedent. Put a devoid counter on it. I guess that would work, right? Yeah, just this card has no color. Yeah, that would make it easier to track if you're actually putting counters on it. That's cool. That's different. You can either use it to kill a small thing, or you can use it to turn your stuff colorless. Still needs an ultimate. It does. But actually, yeah, this makes the negative ability work well. Sweet. Okay, so ultimate, like, you know, -6 or some such. And... -7, gain control all colorless creatures until end of turn. They gain haste, etc. Yes. Yes. This gives you an upside for hitting your opponent's creatures with the plus ability. And the second ability gives you a plus side for hitting your own creatures with that ability. How about that? But Nujugo says, how about that extra combat thing? So it's like a build your own insurrection. Although Nujugo suggests, how about the extra combat? And Cyber5 says, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile a card at random from outside the game. You may cast it this turn without paying its mana cost. A card at random from outside the game. So obviously, in Constructed, this is your sideboard. So you're shuffling up your sideboard, picking a card at random. Boom, it's yours. But in Casual, this means literally shuffle up every card in existence and pick one? It needs to say you own. That makes sense. It's a good point. I do like the extra combat thing. And I would like it on a Planeswalker. I don't think it works with this Planeswalker. And I do like the design of it. Just hit the random button on the wizard page and use a proxy of it. That would work. Why not? Well, because I feel like giving you an extra combat works well on a Planeswalker that gives you creatures with which to attack. Yeah, red can do extra combat stuff, but that doesn't mean that it synergizes well with the other two abilities that we've put on this card. first ability here lets you make creatures devoid. The second ability pays you off for your own colorless creatures. And the third ability pays you off for making your opponent's creatures colorless. So I feel like that is a lot more synergistic than just giving you an extra combat when this card has done little work to get you extra creatures. Yeah, you can discard cards to draw more cards, which can get you creatures, but only if you already have creatures. Also, the extra combat was more for if we went the right direction with attack triggers, etc. Yeah, now, we could still definitely do an extra combat spell. I just don't think it goes on this Planeswalker. That said, if people don't like this Planeswalker, we can make a new red one. I'm just saying. I really like the build your own insurrection. And Cyber 5, I like your suggestion too, but for the same reason, I just don't feel that it's as good here because it doesn't synergize with the other abilities on the card. How many colorless creatures do you expect players to have? Well, Gunblade, we have like 12, no, 13 or 14 common undercover creatures. We have all of our 1/1 tokens in the set are artifact creature tokens. And then we have, of course, your normal couple like artifact creature commons. So I'd say a reasonable amount. Plus, the +1 ability lets you turn creatures into colorless. Should we reduce the minus cost and have it discard the whole hand? We could. Discard. Oops. Your hand. Then draw a card for each colorless creature you control. Cyber5 says, I will say I like the idea of this Planeswalker being like some kind of Terminator-like being, turning people into robots and eventually starting an insurrection. Yes. Robo dude turning people into cyborgs. Whoa, 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 hold up. Completely unrelated to anything, Rada has a Planeswalker Spark. Does she? I'm not sure that I knew that. Okay. Mekmu says, so you'd probably have 3 to 4 cards in hand afterwards most of the time. That works. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we want this to come down a little later. This could be like 4 mana total. And then... Yeah, because, I mean, that would give you some time to get out some colorless creatures beforehand. Let's see. Creature Planeswalker, so maybe it can at least count itself by default. Mekmu says it's not colorless, though. Yes. I was just looking it up because I was doing a Dominaria set and came across that fact. That is interesting. I don't know a lot of lore about, like, I guess old Dominaria, really. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I guess we'll just have to playtest. I feel like discarding your whole hand may be bad. I'm not sure how many colorless creatures you will have by the time you play this. But it might be okay. And hey, I mean, you could, like, say you have 3 colorless creatures out, maybe 2 artifact tokens and an undercover creature. Turn 4, you play this, discard your hand, draw 3 new cards. the next turn you draw a card, you have 4. You can like play a land and maybe play a couple spells, discard your hand, then like draw 4 more. I feel like this can probably be okay. You do definitely have to build around it, but I think that's more interesting. Her spark was extinguished by closing rifts during the mending, but she still technically has it, it just can't ignite. Oh, that's weird. I thought that they were all, like, devoured by the rifts. It's also just filter, doesn't need to net you cards to be beneficial. Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's not, like, consistently going to lose you more cards than you have. But I guess, you know, you could just wait till your hand is empty anyway, so it's really not much of a cost, and you could draw a couple. Cool. So, who do we want this to be? Ninbot. Nin. There we go, we found Nin. She's still like dealing damage and drawing cards based on it, kind of. Mecha Karn. Karn that flies. Okay, we can figure out its name later. Okay, so we actually have completed 4 of our 5 Planeswalkers. Name him Arnold after the most famous death bot. I'm not sure I know that death bot. Oh, Terminator. You're referring to Terminator. See, I know stuff. Trying to think of some kind of coding pun for the name, potentially. Oh, I would love that. Okay. Well, I don't know. I feel like it would be fun if we were able to finish the last Planeswalker tonight, but we also have so much. It's like so many different things we're thinking for it. Oh, can we make our 1/1 robots in the set mirrors? I guess we could. I feel like we need a whole session for that guy. Okay. Let me just suggest one more thing. I might need to say it still comes in with loyalty. And then this would be the Planeswalker with a plus ability to exile it and return it. And that way you have to keep like having it enter as different things. Like it's a clone, but you can exile it, bring it back, comes back as a different thing. I don't know. Hal from accounting. Is this Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey? Ooh, what if when this enters the battlefield, you may have it become a copy of another creature or planeswalker, except it still has its loyalty abilities. That means that it would still come in with its own loyalty. And then I don't have to spell that out. Maybe also a reference to a couple of Bridge series. Excellent. Needs to enter with loyalty counters then. Yes. So, 4, whatever. Hard to say until we actually make the rest of the abilities. Maybe you could name the robot planeswalker Query. That's kind of fun. Still has the issues of not being able to attack it, which could be an issue. True. That's a good point. I don't think you should be able to reset Delilah as the clone. It also wouldn't die from no loyalty. It's a good point. Okay. A lot of issues there. I thought maybe I could try something quick. But it seems like we can just finish this up another time because looks like it's not going to be as easy as I'd hoped. But we did still get our 4 other planeswalkers done. We got our Swamp Thing. Has Undercover. Returns things from the graveyard to the battlefield face down, which is pretty cool. We got our Specimen, number 91 right now. Doesn't really matter. That gives your stuff ward and then makes weapon tokens. And then when it dies, she loses her spark. And then she's weak. But what's up, Mech Moose? What'd I miss? Swamp Thing. Does he need to return creature cards? I guess not. Between black and green, you can pretty much reanimate almost anything, right? And there are undercover cards that aren't creatures. Should we say permanent cards? No, because there are also undercovers. Yeah, just cards. That's a good call, Mech Moose. Thanks. I think this still works. Green does tend to regrow more than reanimate. That is true. But if you're not getting something back that is undercover, then you're still just like making tutus effectively. And if you are getting something back with undercover, we could have just written this as get back an undercover card. I think it's fine. But definitely something to be aware of. Yes, it is definitely a bend in that regard. Well, still, thank you for pointing that out. And then we got Hal from accounting. Who, makes creatures devoid, and then lets you either like draw a bunch of new cards based on how many devoid creatures or colorless creatures you have, or insurrections for colorless creatures. Really cool design. And then we have, where are you at? The Rats Project. Who makes... Interesting. Who makes rat colony tokens and is a rat. That's pretty cool. A tribal planeswalker at that. So those are the main things that we did tonight. We also did like Sir Barrington. Barry. He needs a last name. But he's our green uncommon legendary creature, who counts as a human and not a bear for spells. And lastly, our demon. who's really good and really strong, but also hits you for 6 damage whenever it hits anything. So, the Ratwalker is a case file. Yes, it is in here because I didn't want to have to open a new set file and figure out how to finagle it in with the rest of my other tabs here. So, he is under the case file code name that I have created. Grismore should be his last name. Yes. Yes, it should. I just noticed an opponent could fight spell the demon to kill you, which is hilarious. That is hilarious. I like that a lot. Oh, man. So we didn't get, like, a lot of cards designed tonight, but the ones that we did get, I'm pretty happy with, and there are a lot of the, like, bigger face cards of the set, so it's more important that we get those right. So, for next week, I don't know. What do you guys want to do next week? Obviously, we need to finish whatever Delilah's going to be, wherever she went. So everybody just sort of... I'll leave these all in the case file when I upload it, when I update it. So you can take a look and like design your own version of her based on this. And you could switch it up a bit, like change her colors if you really needed to or wanted to. Change her ability suite. You know, we can keep it pretty open. Basically, it just needs to be an agent that has received, effectively, the Experiment 91's Spark. Chandra's Ignition targeting your demon. Ooh, boy. Start on those rares? Yeah, we can work on rares. Mono white card draw honker, got it. I mean, we can look at anything you guys propose. There are definitely things that are more likely for us to actually select, and things that are a bit less likely. Oh, man. Hey there, Delilah. What's it like in Paranormal City? You're 1,000 hours away from completion. All right. Well, thank you all for hanging out tonight. Thank you for your all your suggestions. We've really come up with some great stuff. Wait. No. So have a good night. Are there any uncommons we also need to work onto? Oh, we have not purposefully worked on the uncommons. We have come up with a bunch of ideas for uncommons, and so we actually have we have a few. We have a few ideas. But yeah, we do still need to do most of the uncommons. And most of the rares. And most of the mythics. So, we got a bunch of stuff. We can decide in the Discord what we want to specifically work on. But as always, you can just sort of submit whatever ideas you happen to have. Don't want to stifle your creativity. All right, have a good night, everybody. I got to get off, but thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all next week.